Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is our quarterly business roundtable focused on serving the Burien and White Center business concerns. My name is Andrea Ray, and I'm the President CEO at the Southside Chamber. We've been the chamber serving the Burien community since the 60s, and it's truly our great honor to continue to serve the Burien and White Center business community. This meeting, again, as I mentioned earlier, is being recorded and it is copyrighted. So please do not reproduce or retransmit unless we give you express written consent to do so. Want to thank Scott Schaefer and Teresa Schaefer and South King Media for being our media sponsor. Scott is our producer for all of our virtual events, and it's so phenomenal that he helps us so that we can get the information out to more people and they can access it at your leisure. All of our virtual content is available on our website. And of course, as an attendee, you'll get a follow-up email from us when the recording is available. So if there's something that maybe you missed in the meeting and you want to go back to it and find it, you'll be able to do that really easily. A few other just Zoom housekeeping notes. Again, we've started the meeting with mics and video disabled. That just helps us kind of limit the cacophony of everybody coming in with the background noise. If you have technical questions, please use the chat for those. If you have questions for our speakers, please use the chat for those questions. If you would rather prefer to ask your question in person live on video, then you are also able to just raise your hand. You can use the reaction feature down at the bottom of the screen to raise your hand, and we'll be able to call on you and facilitate that. Closed captions are also available. Live transcription is also available, again, at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. Of course, here at our chamber, our focus is absolutely on economic development, education, workforce development, and support for our local businesses. Public safety is paramount to economic development, as people want to live and work, shop, and dine in places where they are safe and where they feel safe. Also, just as economic development doesn't just happen, neither does public safety. We all share some accountability and responsibility for creating safe spaces, and public safety, like economic development, is a team sport, which is why we're thrilled to welcome the other members of our team and our speakers here tonight. First, we will hear from Police Chief Ted Bowe. We'll have time after his presentation to do some quick Q&A and follow-up. We'll also hear from Burkhalter and Sam Wolff with LEAD. They'll share an update, again, followed by some more Q&A. And then finally, we'll hear from Chief Mars on fire safety. We have had a rash of arsons, specifically in White Center. We've also, unfortunately, had several apartment fires that have happened locally. And of course, with the holidays approaching, we wanted Chief Mars to also share some best practices for fire safety. And we, again, have plenty of time kind of, built in, we hope, for a lot of that Q&A to answer all of your questions. As the Burien Chamber and as a district, we do meet quarterly, and we encourage you to attend often and engage in our work as we do our best to keep you informed and up to date with what's happening within the Burien community. You can see all of our upcoming events and meetings on our website, seattlesouthsidechamber.com. And with that, I'm happy to welcome our first speaker, that is Chief Ted Bowe. Please take it away, Chief Bowe. We're going to stop sharing our screen, and then you should be able to share your screen.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and good evening to everybody. Chief Ted Bowe here of the Burien Police Department. And I like questions, so feel free to interrupt as I'm kind of going through a couple of slides here. I'm going to talk a little bit about some crime prevention, specifically as it relates to the holidays and things we know are coming up in the winter season. And then after that, I will go through a couple of just general crime trends and updates, things that are going on in Burien, as well as around the state. I'm going to show you a couple of slides here. And like I said, feel free to interrupt me if you have questions. And I assume that's showing on your end as well?
You are good to go.
All right, now let's see if I can make the slides advance. There we go. All right, quick introduction of me. I always like to start with this slide partially because it's my first glamour shot, which makes me happy that I officially have a glamour shot in the corner there. I didn't know how to hold my hands. It took me several hours to actually correctly hold my hands to get that picture taken. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Wisconsin, South King County. I'm married to an elementary school librarian. We have two lovely daughters, and we still live in South King County, or South County, I guess, technically. I am a Husky grad, so I will make occasional cougar jokes. Don't be offended by them. I just am telling the truth. I got my master's degree from Naval Postgraduate. I've been a police officer for 21 years, and I have kind of worked all over King County doing program design, training, community policing, patrol, and investigations before I came here to Burien. So when we start talking about crime prevention, I like to look at this really generic chart that most people use called the crime triangle. And basically what it does is it breaks down the three elements that are required for a crime to occur. You have to have somebody who's willing to commit a crime. You have to have a suitable target or a victim of a crime. And then you also have to have the opportunity for that crime to exist. So as we think about crime prevention, you want to think about the things in that triangle that you can impact, which largely are related to not providing an opportunity or not providing a suitable target. The vast majority of crimes actually fall in crimes of opportunity when things have been made available to somebody, particularly as we talk about the holiday things. And there's two general big buckets I like to kind of throw out there. The first one is that generally speaking, people who are involved in criminal activity will take the path of least resistance. When you're thinking about how to make yourself more hardened to being a victim of a crime, you just have to make yourself a more difficult path than anyone else in that same circumstance. So even if you have a motivated offender, you can make yourself less likely to be involved as the victim of a crime. And the other one is criminals don't want to go detected. One of the greatest pieces of retail study out there, academia out there, is that one of the best ways to stop people from stealing from your store is saying hi. The simple act of acknowledging their presence has a huge reduction in their willingness to commit a crime. As soon as somebody feels like they're going to be detected, or they've had that eye contact and that acknowledgement, it reduces their willingness to be engaged in criminal behavior. So a couple things that we see this time of year. One of the biggest things that we see a lot of as it gets colder is we actually give our cars to auto thieves. We do things in the morning, like start our car and turn the defroster on and then go back inside because it's cold and we let our car warm up and defrost. If somebody's walking down the road and they're willing to commit a crime, you're actually providing the opportunity for that crime to occur. In some cases, that person would never have stolen a car if that car wasn't left there running and available. Other things we see a lot of is running inside to grab your cup of coffee while leaving your car running. You're just dropping your kids off real quick. You're just going to be in and out. So it's just a couple seconds and you leave your car running. And we see a lot of people that get their morning cup of coffee and leave their car running. And what they find is that while they're inside, they think they're watching their car, but it only takes a second for somebody to jump in your car and drive away. So first rule coming up here in the winter season is don't hand your keys to an auto thief. You're giving them that opportunity. Every winter, we have to have the Porch Pirates discussion. I'm not sure if that's the politically correct term, but it's what I call them, and it's what Facebook calls them. So we've all seen the videos. They come out starting right about this time of year of people's presents, packages showing up on their porch, and they sit on the porch for hours, and somebody gets a Ring camera video of somebody walking up to your porch, grabbing your packages and walking away. The reality is, if you have highly valuable items sitting on your porch for a long period of time, eventually, if somebody notices that opportunity to commit a crime is present. So there's lots of different ideas. Have your packages delivered to your place of employment. If you have a clubhouse or an apartment management office, have them delivered to the office. Or companies like Amazon have set up really cool programs to have safe pickup boxes and safe pickup locations where you can have your package delivered to a secure location and then pick it up there. I know when I get packages, I get an email with a photo that my package has just arrived. As soon as you get that email and photo, if you know your package is coming that day, get it off your porch as soon as possible. Even if that means calling a neighbor or having somebody you know and trust come and grab it, get it off the porch so it's not there. And then a couple more generalized mail things. Locking mailboxes are highly effective. Remembering that criminals generally are going to take the path of least resistance. If your mail's locked up, it's less likely to be stolen. And don't mail cards with cash in them. That also tends to be an invite for people to attempt to steal your mail. One of the other things that we're seeing a lot of is car prowls around the holidays. And car prowls, generally speaking, around the holidays are really tied to items of value being visible in your vehicle. A lot of people go Christmas shopping and your packages get really heavy and you walk over to your car and throw them all in the trunk of your car, or throw them in the back seat of your car, and then you go back Christmas shopping. When somebody sees that and they have the intent to commit a crime, that's the opportunity that they're looking for to break your window and steal your packages. The same items like purses, briefcases, computer bags, it's the same thing. When someone walks by and sees the item of value, it makes them more likely to commit a crime. And one of the other ones that we see a lot of people don't lock their car. They leave their car unlocked. And we see a lot of people who will go through a parking lot and wiggle the handles on every car until they find an unlocked one. And that's the one that they get into and take stuff of value out of. So make sure that you're taking that moment to assure your car is locked. Those are my holiday updates for crime prevention tips and techniques. And then I'm going to do how am I looking on time? I'm good. I'm going to do a real quick introduction to your Burien Police Department and just a little bit about what we're up to and some trends that we're seeing in the community and in the state. So Burien Police Department has 43.8 officers. You wonder what a 0.8 officer is? That's what I looked like before I ate all my holiday food. Now I'm a full 1.0 officer. But we actually contract 4 days out of 5 days with one of the officers for a traffic enforcement position. 39 of our current positions are filled. So we have 5 vacancies right now in the department. We have 3 to 4 officers working on any given shift in the city of Burien. And then there's overlap with the swing shift and graveyard schedule. So in the afternoon, we normally will have a little bit more than that as the incoming and outgoing shifts are both on duty at the same time. We are a contract with the King County Sheriff's Office for police services. We respond to about 21,000 calls for service a year. That makes us the busiest King County partner city, as measured by total calls for service and calls for service per officer. So you have the busiest police officers in the King County system. And a little bit about how we're focused on fighting crime in our community or doing our work in our community. The first one is that we believe in building trust. So we believe that every interaction we have every single time is an opportunity to either engage in building trust or deteriorating trust. So we really focus on how we behave in every single interaction. We believe fighting crime, and Andrea took this in my introduction. She used my team sport concept, but it truly is when we talk about public safety. Public safety is not the sole role of law enforcement. It's the role of everybody coming together. It's schools, it's community organizations, it's business community. It's really everybody in our community has some role in public safety within that community. And then supporting each other. One of my key concepts and one of the things I strive for is that if we don't have healthy officers who are supported, they are not going to deliver the results that we expect in our community. We can't expect officers to be not trained, to be not given adequate time off, not taking care of themselves emotionally, not taking care of themselves physically, and then expect them to be performing at a top level. So I'm very conscious that these things need to all exist in a balance to have a healthy, functioning police department. So Burien, as far as crime rate, this is the WASPIC, or the Standardized Crime in Washington Report data from 2020. It comes out once a year, so this is the 2020 data. Our crime rate per 1,000 members of our community falls basically right in the middle of the South King County cities. And we have 0.92 officers per 1,000 residents. I have a dog trying to get into my office really bad right now. So if you guys hear scratching on the door, that's what's going on. And we have the lowest cost per resident for policing in South King County. So what I did was just pulled out all the South King County cities and did this analysis on each one of them. And what you find is that we, generally speaking, are achieving a really high level of efficiency with our police department when you look at the cost versus the output. Some general trends, and some of these are kind of concerning. One is fentanyl. We are experiencing the most deadly year for fentanyl in our history. Fentanyl is a very powerful narcotic analgesic drug with a high risk of overdose. And so far this year, I think it was in September that we passed the highest level we'd ever had for overdose deaths in King County on narcotics. And that trend is continuing. So the presence of fentanyl in our system is highly dangerous. And when combined with people who have an addiction to narcotics, it's a very lethal combination. In Burien, we've had several large seizures related to people bringing these narcotics, and also, interestingly, a lot of firearms associated with that. So it's not a nice group that is bringing this into South King County communities. Crime, as a general rule, is up in 2020. Property crime is, generally speaking, leading that trend, with it being up about 13% in 2020. And some things that we're really seeing in 2021 and lately is catalytic converter thefts and thefts from autos are continuing to be on the rise. Fraud, and last year was largely employment security fraud, caused a substantial increase in the fraud. And then we're seeing increases in larceny and burglary property crimes, assaults, and drug violations, largely related to that fentanyl category up above. Some things that we've been working on here in Burien. Last year, we applied for a grant for a part-time storefront officer downtown. A lot of people working in Burien have gotten to know Mark Hayden, who's doing that on Thursday afternoons for 5 hours a week. We also got enhanced funding for neighborhood and park patrols. So to have officers who are not responding to those 21,000 calls for service, but are available in our communities and our parks. We had the co-lead program developed in 2020 and really supplemented our work with the lead program. We got some new equipment related to investigations and driving impaired, as well as criminal investigations. We started dispatching business alarms, and that was a response to a lot of vacant businesses after the initial COVID shutdown, and not vacant because they were out of business, but rather vacant because they were closed and there wasn't as much activity. So we started dispatching alarms in the downtown core to make sure officers were getting to the downtown core quicker when there was alarms. And then we really focused on data-driven patrol, or having our officers work where the calls for service were driving our activity. And some things coming soon, and I'm guessing Aaron may follow up on some of these topics. One of these is the community response team, which is a partnership between the police department, the fire department, and the city, to combine an emergency medical technician and a mental health professional in responding to calls and following up on calls in our community. A business outreach care coordinator, which I'm going to let Aaron talk about a little bit more, but that is basically bringing a resource other than law enforcement to some of these problems downtown, and really having some dedicated tools for businesses downtown. And then a dedicated storefront officer, which would be Mark Hayden, moving up to a 40-hour a week or a full-time position based in downtown or in Discover Burien. Brave is a new Department of Commerce program that I'll talk about more a little bit later when my time's not running out. We have a new sheriff coming to town on the first of the year. We don't know exactly who that's going to be, but under our charter change, we no longer have an elected sheriff. So Mitzi Johannick will finish her term. And then we likely will have an interim while they do a national search for a new sheriff that will be appointed by the executive. That likely will come with new strategy and direction for the entire sheriff's office, and really new leadership in law enforcement across King County would be my expectation. One of the goals of the sheriff is actually to be the lead law enforcement officer in the county, and really to set the tone for what best practices look like. In Burien, we'll be adding more online reporting options and availability to do your own reports. And then I put staffing plus, minus, or equals, because you'll notice I only have 39 of my 43.8 officers, and we really don't know. Right now, we're having a very hard time across the profession in recruiting, and we're finding more and more vacancies across the sheriff's office that is resulting in more and more vacancies in the contract partners on the sheriff's office. So we're really hoping to see that trend turn around, but we also are aware that with the COVID mandates and the general staffing considerations, that there may be a window where it takes us a while to get our staffing under control. And with that, I'll take any quick questions, and then I'll be back for half an hour at the end for any more generalized questions.
Yeah, perfect. And we do have one in the chat. And again, just a reminder, I know something's going on with the chat, so you might not be able to chat to everyone. You can definitely chat to me. So I do have some questions that have popped up in the chat. And then again, if you would prefer to ask your question to Chief Bowe in person, just use that raise your hand feature, and we will get that facilitated. So this first question has to do with mail theft and package theft. So even in a secure condo complex, right, you have to buzz everybody in. Nobody can just open the door and get in. And in a secure mail area, thieves broke in, they broke down the door, and they stole packages and mail. And also of reports of even, breaking into the Burien post office. So even, when an area is secure, people are still getting in. Any advice or tips for especially kind of, those kind of shared condo apartment secure, mail areas?
My tips are still kind of the same. Get packages as soon as possible out of common spaces. A lot of times, it doesn't sound like that's what's going on here, but a lot of times when we have these thefts where it's in a communal space, we find out it's someone in the communal space, either who was involved in the theft or who gave access to somebody into that space. Really being conscious of controlling access. One of the avenues we see in secured complexes a lot is our trend towards being courteous. Gets us to hold doors open for people and not to ask questions of people when they show up. And it's really, really important that I don't want to say you're rude, but that if you don't know somebody, you're willing to ask them who they are, or to say, hey, I'm going to have you buzz whoever that is that you're coming to visit, because I'm not going to let you in. Those kind of things tend to be trends that we see. And then, as always, anything that's more hardened is better. So it's better to have your outgoing mail in one of those giant blue outgoing mailboxes than it is to have it in your own mailbox with the flag up. So you're making it more difficult to steal. It doesn't make it impossible to steal, but rather makes it more difficult.
No, I appreciate that. I know we were personally victims of mail theft with a locking mailbox. And I know for us and our family, we now have we go to the UPS store, right? It's just a little bit easier for us because it's tough, and it's a prevalent problem. It's happening everywhere. Absolutely. Perfect. I think any other, questions for Chief Bowe? Wow.
All right. Thank you much. I'll be around during the half an hour session at the end as well for anybody who has questions.
That sounds great. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It is now my honor and my pleasure to introduce Aaron Burkhalter and Sam Wolff to give us an update on LEAD.
Thanks for having us. And I just want to sympathize. I'm a Burien resident as well. And I'm also a member of the Hilltop PTA, and our PO box was someone stole stuff from that PO box. So we all got to go down and hang out at BQ for a while and get new account numbers and everything. So that mail theft stuff can really have an impact. I also, before I jumped into the stuff I wanted to share, I just wanted to acknowledge and thank everyone for being here. I see people that I've had some great conversations with in the past. I see some people who have provided me some fantastic coffee in the past, and I do everything I can to encourage people to go there as well. So my name is Aaron Burkhalter. I am the project manager for the LEAD program in Burien. I also am the project manager that oversees the same program in White Center and West Seattle, and I've really appreciated being able to have those three all in a row, because we've got really good clean lines of communication, because the people that we work with are not static, and so they definitely have activity and they move. And then Sam, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Sam Wolff. I'm a lead project manager right now. I'm working in the North Precinct of Seattle, but with our team being a little bit small at the moment, we're all supporting each other. So I work with Aaron at times, supporting him in his districts as well. Nice to be with you all.
Awesome, thank you. I'm excited for any questions as well, but I'm going to just update you on some comings and goings of the LEAD program. Before I get into that, just in case anyone hasn't had an opportunity to talk about this, and I don't want to spend the whole time, but I just want to make sure we have like a short, we're operating from a similar framework, which is that LEAD is a county funded program that is a partnership between my agency, the Public Defender Association, though our name is changing soon to Purpose, Dignity, Action, with my agency, with Burien Police Department, with the City of Burien, with the Highline School District, and other people that have been around the table that have worked with us, the City of Burien as well. So there's shared ownership around the program. We do the project management of the program. The Reach program, another nonprofit, is doing the actual direct case management and service for LEAD clients. And what makes a LEAD client is somebody who's got a behavioral health challenge, such as a chemical dependency or a mental health diagnosis. They are living in extreme poverty, and they are in the criminal justice system. And that can kind of come in small or large ways. This is either people that Chief Bowe's team is interacting with on a daily basis. They may not be rising to the level of arrest, but they're generating a lot of 911 calls. It could be people that have very long track records, a lot of different charges, open warrants, open cases, ongoing activity in the community. So these people are brought to us, some from law enforcement. Chief Bowe's Crime Reduction Unit in particular brings us a lot of individuals that we then have case managers go and seek out and get connected with. But we also can receive them from community members. We can also receive them from community members, local service agencies, other people. The Burien prosecuting attorney brought us a suggestion a month or two back as well. So a lot of ways that people can come into the program. I'm going to make sure to drop my contact information into the chat before I head out tonight, so that if you do have, maybe a referral, or you want some follow-up questions, or you just would like to have a deeper conversation about what LEAD is and what we do and how we operate, I'll make sure that we can do that. But I am going to if you don't mind, I've got some notes that I want to make sure I don't miss any of my points that I wanted to make sure that we went over today. So where the LEAD program is today in Burien, we have 58 active clients. We have several more people who have been referred into the program, but they are not fully active clients yet. And what that means is, with an active client, we've done an extensive intake to look at all of their diagnoses, all of the existing care that they are receiving through other programs. What are their wants and needs? What are resources that they have that might be useful? We could be talking, say we were talking with Sam. Sam might have a need for some chemical dependency treatment, might have a couple of open warrants that need to be dealt with, but maybe they're not huge, and so those are going to be a little bit, but maybe has been outdoors for a really long period of time, has struggled to get into housing, but hey, also has some family members in Oregon who might be able to support. So it's just all of those just different little pieces of Sam that all come together and give us like the best picture of like, what is the best way that we can move forward with this person and help with them. The other thing that happens when they become an active client is we get them to sign a release of information, which allows us to talk to those service providers and help clients get connected, stay connected with their services. This way we can contact a chemical dependency provider that maybe they have a relationship with, and continue to work for them and advocate for them. And this is because our case managers, in large part, are brokers of services. They're trying to they're trying to find the services and help connect the clients to the services, all the way from finding them and saying, hey, here's something to you, all the way to how are we going to get you to that appointment? Do you need me to go to that appointment with you so that you are able to get the services that you need? So some things to look forward to that's coming up for the program. In addition to we've got 5 case managers that are operating in Burien. One of them is splitting their time with West Seattle as well. Reach is going to have an outreach worker that's going to be operating in Burien and specifically responsive to businesses in particular. We call this a BIA outreach worker. BIA would be business improvement area. It's just the terminology that has been kind of passed over from other similar programs. But a good friend of mine, David, does this work in the University District. And what this looks like is a business comes to open their shop in the morning and somebody is sleeping in front of the doorway and they're not sure what to do. So they call David up. We're within the hours that David's available. And David comes down and kind of does a really delicate, careful redirection of what's going on. Not coming down and saying, hey, get out of the way. Burien Press has got to open up. You got to go. Instead, it's like, hey, can I grab you a cup of coffee and let's go sit in the park and talk and just catch up. Once they've kind of made that redirect, David will sit down with people and kind of get to know them a little bit, find out what's going on with them, and kind of figure out like, well, where should this person be directed? What other programs are out there to serve them so that we're not just solving that immediate problem of person sleeping in a doorway and refusing to move, but the longer term problems of how can we help them in the future. So that was a position that was funded by the city of Burien. While not specifically a lead position, we'll be working side by side with lead. We'll certainly be meeting people who are lead clients and calling up, Seth or Jonathan to say, hey, Sam's down here and this is what's going on and this is what we need to resolve. Or could be on the other end, hey, I just met this client. I think they could totally be a lead client. What do you think? So that's one piece that's kind of coming up. Another thing that I wanted to highlight, we have a building in Burien. It hasn't been super well known or utilized yet because we opened it right as COVID hit. And so we weren't really able to let people into the space and make proper use of it. However, Reach, which is the entity that is doing the service providing for the program, is starting to open up just a little bit the space a little bit more to clients so that they can spend a little bit more time in there and they can have a little bit better access to case managers. They're doing it a step at a time to just be kind of cognizant of the risks of ongoing pandemic and wanting to kind of do it right. But the hope is that, step by step, we'll slowly be opening up. This in some ways is starting to fill a need that's been we've desperately been hoping for in Burien. And I think a lot of people will recognize this, which is that there's not really any day centers where people can spend prolonged periods of time during the day safely. And it's in lack of that service in the area, places like the library and parks are kind of becoming the day centers that people are going to. The last thing I kind of wanted to close with was just to kind of talk about, we have clients that we're able to work with and find housing opportunities fairly quickly, and we have other clients that it takes quite a bit of time. A lot of this is because there is a real gap in the services that we need right now. I'll just give a great anecdote. As I showed up at a meeting with one of the Reach caseworkers to talk with actually a business in Georgetown about, businesses having questions about getting people into services, getting them tapped into services. How can we get people really connected? Businesses like yourselves really looking for, I want to see solutions. I want to see this person get the services that they need. And I also want to see the problems that are associated with what's going on with them to go away. And in that conversation, someone asked about shelter beds, and the Reach caseworker who was there said, well, there's 4 open today in the whole region. And so we're looking at, our program has hundreds of clients and dealing with trying to find ways, which 4 people, who can we get into those slots? Another anecdote would be periodically certain specific housing opportunities, kind of one time we've got this window open for permanent supportive housing for one of your clients. And we just see our case managers in a scramble to try to get applications, really strong applications put together that for this opportunity that has come up. We've had a lot of clients that are difficult to house because they don't fit into a lot of the traditional systems. Just in terms of some people have criminal backgrounds that might lock them from things. Some people have diagnoses that make it difficult for them to operate in those spaces, and they're just not built or equipped for someone with like very high acuity mental illness to be able to be able to go with that. So there's a need right now for housing. We need landlords for those clients who are appropriate for this, who can maintain this kind of housing, who are willing to give people second chances and work with people. Yeah, I think I'm rambling a little bit because I'm coming to the end of what I wanted to share. Not sure if there's any questions that have come up.
Yeah, we do have questions, and I'm going to ask Scott to also pin Chief Bowe here as well, if he might be available, because we have a question that I think might apply to Aaron, Sam, or you, Chief Bowe, which is what investments can we make as a community to address the willingness to commit crime by supporting opportunities and support for folks in Burien? Have you seen investments in other communities make meaningful change that we could take on now to improve our community down the road?
That's an amazing question. And I just want to thank whoever asked that for the way that you phrased that, and for I'm hearing you get the kind of the collaborative nature of how this is a community response. I can give my answers, and I'd love to hear what Sam and Chief Bowe have to say. Just the things that I would look at is investments in housing and investments in services and investments in shelter, I think are going to be a really big thing. I know those are not uncomplicated asks or situations to kind of manage in the community. I have to kind of be kind of direct and honest about the fact that one of the things that we're really struggling in South King County is that there's nothing in South King County. Not zero, nothing, but there's very little opportunity in South King County for people that for people to go there. When we talk about people that are committing crimes, in many cases, things that happen inside of a house are not viewed as a crime or a disturbance to the community compared to whether it's going to happen out on the street. And so for as long as a number of clients that we have are stuck outdoors, we're going to continue to kind of see a lot of those conflicts. It's going to be very difficult to address a lot of those things. Sam, do you have anything you want to add from the?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it pretty well. I guess the only thing I would add is just like an emphasis on we do need more housing for everybody. But one thing we've seen with a lot of lead clients and just care clients is just like the need for not just housing, but like housing that fits the needs of those who are living unhoused. And so for a lot of folks, this is like housing that includes like the wraparound, like behavioral health supports, things that are going to like help these folks like stabilize. It's, kind of like, if you want someone to stop stealing bread, we got to give them bread. But for other folks, their needs are significantly higher. And so a lot of times when people see like, oh, this person like refused this housing, the way we like to look at it is like, it's this is a service that has barriers to people that have different needs. So just kind of making sure that we're designing the right tools for the population that we want to be working with.
That's a great point. I want to like echo that. Like with sometimes there's a housing program that will come along and they'll set barriers or requirements to people that just mean that a client that we're working with is going to be unsuccessful. And so we're struggling, and we have the struggle of trying to find those housing programs that are going to be able to meet that person where they're at. so that we can get them to succeed, have small successes now so that we can lead them to some big successes later.
Yeah, nothing happens overnight.
I guess I could just say, yeah, what they said, but that's kind of a cheap cop out. But the reality is there's a very small percentage of criminal deviance in our society. Most people have some unmet need that's resulting in a series of behaviors, some of which are resulting in this interaction with law enforcement or negative interaction with the community. And if you can deal with those unmet needs and the underlying causes of that, often that is a much more effective long-term solution to the problem. So we often put law enforcement and the criminal justice system on the front end of this. And really, it should be more of a backstop for the few people who are actually quote unquote criminal deviant, and not really the front end for people who are having a behavior that's resulting in a condition that is disturbing to you, but really is not a criminal justice focused solution that is best suited. So I know most of the people I'm seeing on the crowd, you've heard my some of the stories I tell of these people who we book 30, 40, 50, 80 times. And but look, we already tried that trick. It didn't work. Like, why did we do that first and not try the trick of letting Aaron have a first crack at it and then putting us on the back end? And that's, I think, a lot of times where the most effective solutions come is when we look at that and we're all in a room. Like we sit around in this operational work group and you have police officers and outreach talking about what's in the best interest of the client and how can we meet this person's need. And it really is at that human level that I think you'll find solutions to the problems.
I want to just add to that one other thing, which is to say, I know kind of a lot of the crimes that are happening in Burien that are related to our clients. And you might be thinking to yourself, is that really meeting a need? And I want to also add to this the layer that for the people, a lot of the people that we are working with, they're dealing with very complex problems that were years, if not decades in the making, that have really built up to kind of the behavioral health conditions and symptoms that you are witnessing today. So just thought I'd add that.
I appreciate that so much, and touching a little bit on that is that access to mental health services and mental health support. How big is that demand? And what, if anything, can the business community do to support adding more support for mental health providers within the community to fit and serve that need?
That's a great question. I think a couple of the things that come to mind, and I know like a day or two from now, like something's going to hit me like a lead brick. I'm going to go, oh, I should have said that. But I think a couple of the things that I'd point at now is we do have some mental health services that are available to clients, but occasionally those have barriers as well. That there can be services that have come, but maybe the client has burned a bridge bad enough with that place that we're scrambling to try to find another location. So encouraging the mental health providers that we have, encouraging mental health providers that come to the area to find really good harm reduction ways to engage with their clients, to find ways that find creative solutions with their clients, to creative solutions to be able to find a way to meet the client in a way that is healthy for the client and the people that are providing them the care. I think that would be one thing. I think the other thing is that there are county services that are available that we aren't seeing in Burien as strongly as we have in the past. And so I would think encouraging the county to ensure that the services that are available, I'm going to use some terms here and I don't want to spend too long getting into it, but we call them our true blood clients. They're related to a lawsuit that basically set aside certain funds for people with high acuity, people in the criminal justice system with like really high acuity mental health challenges. And really anything to encourage the county to make sure that those true blood services we're not losing track of them and the need for them in Burien, because they're just not happening the way they used to. Yeah, go ahead, Ted.
If I'm not stealing Chief Moore's thunder on this, one of the other things is coming next year in this bigger look at what were the gaps in our system here in Burien. And one of them was about having that dedicated mental health navigator on the street in our community 40 hours a week, partnered with an EMT to help navigate people into those systems on the ground when we're dealing with them in the moment. So I think having that in our community, as opposed to having, there's on-call resources through the county, but often they take, hours to days to get to the scene. And having that dedicated working within our system, working with the partners here in the community is going to be a huge asset to the city. I think that can't be understated when we start talking about how to navigate the mental health systems. Is having the expert on the inside here in our community is going to help us in a lot of ways.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, that is a perfect segue to Linda Icky, you have a question. I am going to ask to unmute, and I think now I just lost you, and I can also ask you. Oh, yeah, no, you're good to go. All right, Linda, please ask your question.
Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you all again for all of the work that you're doing. I think it's fantastic. There are limited resources, and it's greatly appreciated for all of the work. I will say that we have seen improvements in Burien Town Square Park. We were having problems as the pandemic wore on with nighttime drug-fueled parties that were keeping residents up at night. Those have stopped. We are not seeing the drug dealing that we saw before. We're not seeing the drug doing in the park. This is helping. We are still seeing break-ins in the downtown community. So we're still seeing criminal activity. And so with that, just a couple of comments on our end. One is grateful that we're going to have Mark Hayden coming on full-time and the other resources full-time. This still does not address the nighttime issues that continue in the park. My hope is that we will obtain services for these people so that they are not in the downtown core breaking into places. And these just aren't the downtown core that this stuff happens. We're seeing these break-ins occurring throughout the entire community in residential areas as well. At least as is being reported on places like Take Back Burien on Facebook. So want to know and understand how we can make things safer at night. Still pretty much, we have dog walkers in the community and things like that. Sometimes they have to take their dog out late at night, and people, women particularly, but people in general feel very nervous about being outdoors at night alone, and just don't feel comfortable doing it at all. And creating a safe community that people feel comfortable for being outside at night would be a great thing for the community. Also, with all respect to everything that Chief Bowe is doing, and hopefully, you can get more recruiting. I understand that you may have 0.92 per 1,000 officers, like total for the whole department, but that right now I'm hearing that there's still only 3 officers on duty for the entire city at a given time. And that makes it about 1 in 18,000, one officer for about 18,000 people. And that's just really disconcerting to me. I'm not saying that everything can be solved by police officers, and I'm not suggesting that, but I am saying that in many communities, it is actually 1 per 1,000 on-duty officers in many communities that I'm familiar with. So I know that there's going to be continued work towards hiring more officers, and the Sheriff's Department challenges that are happening as well, and hopefully those things will change. I know that the pandemic is creating issues with some people that don't want to get vaccinated or that kind of thing in order to be staffed. But so I realize there's a lot of issues and problems, and I know that there's not necessarily a solution, but I believe that this needs to be something that the city of Burien and the community really continues to address, to be able to have the support and the kind of support for the police department that can be most successful for the city. Also, curious when some of these people would be in place. I thought, I was thinking that Mark Hayden was supposed to be starting full-time in October, but I guess that's been postponed a little bit. So I was wondering about when that all might be actually happening. And then the other positions, I think, were supposed to start by January. Has that been postponed somewhat, or is that still on schedule? And then so I moved here 2.5 years ago, and the same people are on the streets that were here 2.5 years ago. I believe that it is inhumane to allow people to remain on the street. I think it's just unfathomable that we allow people with mental illness and drug addiction to remain on the streets for their own health and safety and not being able to get help that they need, as well as for the community. It doesn't help our businesses, it doesn't help our residents. And I think that this is something that is really about a moral issue as well. And it is difficult to continue to watch the same people be on the streets, not be helped. I hear that it's because they are not in a place to accept help. And I think this is just unacceptable. I think that there needs to be ways for people to be helped. They oftentimes, with mental health and with drug addiction, their brains are completely changed, altered. They're not able to make decisions for themselves. Some of these people are already deemed by the court as incompetent and unable to make decisions for themselves, and they need people to be able to make those decisions for them. And I realize that this may not be something that fits within the philosophy of LEAD or other organizations, but I'm telling you where I come from, it is not acceptable to leave these people on the street. It is immoral, it is inhumane, and it doesn't help them or the community at all. So it's just a philosophy of being able to help people in ways. I just hate walking by the same people every single day in the community. It's tragic for me, and it's sad for me. And unfortunately, there's nothing that I can do individually. And I just want to share the sadness and frustration that is centered around that. So those are my comments. If you guys have anything to add, that'd be great.
I appreciate that, Linda. So I heard basically 3 questions in there, which is kind of, what's happening with Mark, what's happening with the additional officers, and then, what happens or, how can we, create some more, humane or moral options, for people who are, just having difficulty, navigating or getting access to the system. I'm paraphrasing that. Okay, Linda, and then we'll try to, cover those questions and then get on to Chief Mars.
I think the first couple were on me. So the position for Mark is funded, but with me having to prioritize limited resources, 911 call response will take priority. We also have not carried any vacancies in the crime reduction unit, which is the detectives that are really doing the collaborative work with programs like LEAD. Everybody else in the city is carrying vacancies right now so that we can prioritize 911 response. So your other detective units are carrying vacancies. The traffic position is vacant and the storefront position is vacant to keep people on the streets. You're correct. Our minimum staffing is set based on the number of people we have in the city, and it's three officers from midnight until 10 a.m. And then from 10 a.m. on, it is 4 officers. That's the minimum staffing level. That's not where we want to be. It's not if everybody shows up where we are, but it's the staffing level that the union has agreed to as the minimum safe staffing level in the city. So we can't go below that point. So that's where that's at. As far as the other officers, this is an industry-wide problem. There are actually departments right now that are giving tens of thousands of dollars of recruiting bonuses to try to get laterals, and we're all stealing officers from each other. But the reality is there's not a big enough pool of new officers entering the profession to balance that out. So while fighting over the same limited pool of resources is beneficial for them financially, the entire profession needs a new generation of young people coming into this line of work that really meet what the community expectations are for this line of work. So that's the challenge is finding. The challenge is twofold. One, we have to define what that future looks like, which I think is part of the challenge. It's hard to recruit to not a clearly defined future, which is the leadership component that I talked about with the charter change. And then once we do that, then helping to find and really target young people that meet that future of law enforcement is going to be key to where we go from here. So, and I think that actually will lead right into the next question about how do we really solve some of these community issues. And I think part of it is having law enforcement be in the right role. And part of it is really that collaborative understanding, having a deeper understanding of public safety and where does our role stop, or certainly become shoulder to shoulder with programs like LEAD, as opposed to where is law enforcement the end all and be all of all community situations.
I think in addition, I think I heard there was maybe a question about when the outreach worker might be hired. And my understanding is the target is January. I haven't heard anything different yet, but I will add that I've also heard that Reach that staffs that position is also challenging. I think like everyone right now is having challenges with the hiring pool. And it's a difficult, it's not a position where you just put a body in that position and have them go do that work. You got to get the right person to be able to do it right. And then to that larger question, and I think I just want to start by saying, like, it is inhumane. I completely share. I mean, this is why we're in this work, is that this isn't an acceptable response, and we need better options for people. My answer for how we handle that is related in part on kind of some limitations that we have. We don't have an existing mechanism that forces people into services. And whether that's something we would want to go pursue or not, the work that happens needs to happen with the consent of the people that we're working with. I think that you answer those calls, or you answer that question by making sure that what we have to offer them is meeting what they want and what they need. It's attractive to them, and it fulfills what they think they need, but then it also is fulfilling underlying needs of their diagnosis, their experience, things that really need to be addressed for them. And we're meeting with all of the candidates just to introduce ourselves around the region. And we met with Dow Constantine today, and we basically said the same thing. He was asking kind of the same questions you were, and we said we need services and programs and supports that are going to solve the problems, and they're going to be things that people are going to agree to go into. So that's the kind of stuff. I mean, and that's stuff that we'll continue working on.
I can add a little bit of perspective to that too. I'll put on my hat as one of my jobs before this was as an outreach case manager. I was in a different city, but with a lot of the same barriers to shelter. And so even for folks that don't have extremely complicated diagnoses, even for folks that are like experiencing just extreme poverty and being unhoused, a lot of the new resources that are coming online now, such as like tiny homes and other like non-congregate setups that people are accepting at a very high rate, they differ from the more traditional congregate shelter settings. And there are like a lot of ways that, like, as an outreach case manager, like going to work with somebody living on the streets, it's like there's like an offer for this shelter. Why wouldn't you take it? And the reasons are actually quite rational. So, I mean, in a lot of situations, it's like if somebody has a partner or say like a pet or something, they might not be able to bring the pet to the shelter. They might not be able to go to the same shelter as their partner, because there's different setups for men, women, and couples or families. It's also an issue too of like back end, like you go into like say a congregate shelter setting, which is what a lot of people are offered. And you don't know how long it will take to get like housing after that. And the congregate shelter settings, probably to a lot of varying degrees can be also very difficult to live in. So people might prefer to live on like to their own in a tent somewhere, preferring that to this. Just there are a lot of obstacles, and particularly for people with complex diagnoses, the obstacles are even greater. So it's about resources. It's about more complicated and like accurate resources, accurate tools for the job, but in every case, it's about more.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Really thoughtful, insightful discussion on, again, we say a lot here at the Chamber, complex problems are going to require complex solutions, right? So, and we can all work together to make those happen. So thank you so much. I am now going to invite Chief Mars just to talk to us a little bit about fire safety. Again, it's getting colder, it's getting darker. People are going to be, wanting to light fires in those fireplaces, plug in those Christmas trees. We've also been, getting, quite a few, arsons and other fires. What else can we do to keep ourselves safe? Chief Mars, you have all the answers.
I don't know. We'll see. I'll take questions at the end if I don't touch on it. I did want to touch on all the fires, because certainly we've had a lot. We've had a lot of large loss fires. And I think just to distinguish between, when we say arson or an arson problem, and you kind of, at least I kind of picture some guy with a 5-gallon can breaking into buildings and trying to burn them down and kind of targeting, multiple. And, I'd say at this point, we don't have an arson problem. We've had that in the past. We've had someone, different people that target and are really trying to do damage. But really, if I go through all the large loss fires, only one of them was a true arson fire. Doesn't diminish the fact that the buildings burned really bad and businesses were displaced and a lot of financial damage. But so if we talk about the lumberyard fire up in White Center, that was arson. That was someone that targeted the building and tried to burn it and burned it quite well. And then looking at, we actually had 2 other buildings that had 2 fires in them each, which is rare. And so neither of them had been repaired since the first fire, but one of them, the building next to the Gerber collision, that burned twice. Both of those were caused recklessly. And so the difference between kind of arson and reckless burning doesn't really change if the building burned down, but reckless burning caused by people that were trespassing in the building. And whether it's they're there for shelter or they're there for a cooking fire or for drug paraphernalia fire, they didn't target the building to burn it down, but they were very reckless and it caused a fire twice in that building. And then the locker room fire, that was reckless also, but it was most likely caused by discarded smoking material both times, which there again is just absolutely, off the chart, phenomenal that you'd have 2 fires, both caused by smoking material, both at the same building. And so, but we work closely with the King County Fire Investigation Unit, and I'm pretty confident that's their determination on all those fires. And then the last one we had, which was the Marina fire down in South Park, I think we had about 13 boats in total that burned. It was probably one of the biggest fires we've had in decades around here. And when I was going to it, you could see it from 509. I mean, it was a huge fire. And that was caused by accident, but it was someone that was welding and grinding in an area that you shouldn't have been welding and grinding. And so you mix welding, grinding, maybe a little alcohol, bad choices, and all of a sudden you start your boat on fire, which then starts 13 other boats or 12 other boats on fire. So, reckless, accidental, but certainly we've had a rash of really large loss fires. Now I'll take any questions that anyone has on those, but I did want to touch on them because they certainly have been in the news. As far as what we can do, kind of, I targeted this more towards businesses, but I can also talk about for residential. Certainly clean and maintain your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. When your filters get clogged or your belts and motors are working hard because they're trying to force more air or more heat through there, they get worn out, they overheat, and they can cause fire. Store your flammable and combustible materials properly. Liquids like paint, gasoline, cleaners should go in a flammable liquid cabinet that's rated for flammable liquids. And then clean up your exterior combustible waste and secure your dumpsters when possible. And so I know, you know, there's a emptying cycle and they have to come and dump them and you can't have them locked all the time. But we have a fair number of fires that are just started in dumpsters, some accidental, some on purpose. We do really in both downtown communities, both White Center and Burien, we do have people that just light either for cooking or warming or sometime, you know, just to light fires. And we talked a lot about the complex needs of some of the people in the community. But make sure you call us out on those, even if it's what we call a cold fire. And that's, you know, you go to your place of business in the morning and you see a pile of cardboard that had been lit on fire and either burned itself out or someone put it out. And you find that, make sure you call us so that we can document that. We can look for patterns in case we do get an arsonist that is out there and targeting buildings or targeting other people. And we're going into the rainy season, so this is less likely, but keep dry vegetation from accumulating, trim and dispose of dead and dormant landscaping. So as we do our fall cleanup and that kind of thing, make sure you dispose of that. Don't add to that fuel load that's next to your house or next to your building. And just kind of general safety, maintain complete exit ways, including halls, stairwells, and exit doors. Label your electrical panels and keep the access to them clear. This is really important. If you get electrical fire, you get an outlet that's sparking, you get a electrical device that's arcing, sparking, maybe catching on fire, we can get there, or you can get there quickly, find that electrical panel and turn that breaker off to de-energize that so it's easier to put out. And then really limit your use of extension cords. I know that's a hard one. If any one of us look under our desks, we probably have extension cords or power strips. Try to limit those use. We do get a lot of fires from overheated extension cords. That certainly goes into the holiday season with lights and decorations where we don't have them up. We don't have a convenient place to plug them in, and we get out, you know, who was it, Clark Griswold for the movie, but, you know, overloaded circuits, they certainly, I've seen a lot of those kind of fires. Test and maintain your exit lighting and exit signs. Maintain fire extinguishers. All fires start small. Every one of those huge, large lost fires started with a spark, a small fire, something that grew and grew pretty rapidly and was undiscovered for a long period of time. Some of those fires had probably been burning for several hours before they were noticed and got a big head start on us. And make sure you service those fire extinguishers annually. And then if you have a sprinkler system, a fire alarm system, or smoke detectors, make sure that you service those annually also and test them out. And then consider upgrading any old and non-existent systems. So if you don't have fire sprinklers or if you don't have fire alarm system, consider putting those kind of systems in there. As far as Christmas tree specifically, I have seen our share of Christmas trees that are dried out. People put them in their house, never give them any water, leave them till about January or February, and then wonder why they caught on fire. So make sure that you water them and then take them down as soon as when it's your time to take them down. With that, I did want to segue into something that Chief Bowe did talk about. We're working on the community response team, and that's the King County Fire District 2, which is the Burien Fire Department, Burien Normandy Park, and then North Highline Fire Department, which is the White Center unincorporated area. So I'm the fire chief for both. Most of you know me. I've been around a long time, 30 years. I don't have a glamour shot like Ted, but been here 30 years. I started as a volunteer, been the fire chief in Burien for 23 years, and North Highline for about 8. So we are working on that community response team between the fire departments, the city of Burien, and the police department. And those lines get real blurry as far as, like, my fire district includes both cities. So City of Burien, City of Normandy Park, and then North Highline is the entire unincorporated area, including South Park, Boulevard Park, and not just the White Center core. So the funding gets a little sometimes territorial, and sometimes, people want that service in a very specific area. But this mobile integrated health or community response team, it is going to be a fire department EMT and then our mental health professional, and they will go out in the community from the Seattle Roxbury border all the way down through Normandy Park. I mean, that's the reality of where the fire department funding is funding. Now we're looking at already, we haven't even got the car off the ground, and we're looking at people that want to join in and expand the use or expand the number of cars we've had. So we've been in discussions with some of the management of King County and different agencies in downtown White Center to look at expanding that for more hours specifically in the downtown White Center area. So as this gets up and running, and I think, we know it's going to be well utilized. The fire department, goes out and sees many of these people on a very low acuity basis where they don't need to go to the hospital, but I know I'm probably cutting on time here. Our opportunity is really, we go out, we see a patient, it's sick, not sick. You're either going to the hospital or you're able to stay at home. And that was our only two options for a long time. And it's not there. And we know they're not good options for people. I've fallen and I can't get up. They just need help back up. I've fallen, I can't get up. And there's probably a reason if we've seen them 20, 30, 40 times. And so for a whole variety of reasons. So it's really our low acuity response and to a lot of the things that we're already talking to about tonight that can go out with a mental health professional, spend the time, do the extra work, get to know the people, and figure out hospital's not the right place for them. The hospital's going to look at them, say you're not sick enough to be admitted, and kick them right back out. And so we know that there needs to be other services. So I'm excited to get it off the ground. It's taken a long time, and I hate to sound like a broken record like everyone else. COVID's hitting us hard too. We're got our own staffing challenges, and we're just been working on this a long time. Ted's put a lot of work in on it. The city of Burien's put a lot of work in on it. And we're really getting close, and hopefully the target is still that we'll be up and running January. So with that, I better stop so I don't ramble and I can answer any questions.
That's perfect. Yeah, we do have some questions here. One of the questions was, and you kind of touched on it a little bit there, just with, staffing levels, Chief Bowe talked about some of, their staffing challenges. Certainly the fire department is not immune to the staffing challenges. I know, across every industry, at the chamber, there's staffing challenges.
Yeah. So if you want me to talk specifically, we're, I guess I'd say we're fully staffed, but part of our challenge right now is we have a huge turnover in retirements. And so we've got retirements. We did lose 3 people to the COVID mandate. So we will be 100% vaccinated when we come to your home or place of business, but that did cost us 3 positions there that we're working on filling. But really for us, it's been retirements that have hit us hard, and recruitment is a little bit easier for us than I think than what Ted is saying. But it's just getting them into the pipeline. And to take a person, new hire, put them through everything that they need to go through. It's about a 5-month process. And then after they get out of the academy, it's the remainder of a 3-year process to be 100% firefighter trained. So it's a long process, and it takes a long pipeline. And so we've done we were a very aged fleet probably 5 years ago. And we're about 1/3 new hires that are in that first 3-year period right now. So we've had just tremendous turnover, and it's just a training challenge right now. But we're able to maintain our numbers.
Great, thank you so much.
Yep.
You touched on just again the financial loss, that can happen with a commercial fire, and within our businesses and our business districts. Are there new fire fighting technologies that would be worth a business looking into adding for their business? Any type of new like smoke detection alarms or other fire suppression technologies that you would recommend if a new business was coming in and they had some money that they could invest in fire protection? What would you recommend they invest in?
Yeah, so certainly, the cheapest bang for your buck is to make sure that you have a very robust detection system. And so that, if you do get the burned food, or you do get the overheated outlet, or you do get that very small fire, that you get early detection, and that either gets someone there to put it out or gets us on the road a lot quicker. So certainly early detection is important. It doesn't put out the fire, it doesn't keep it in check, but it doesn't go unchecked for nearly as long. So certainly a robust smoke detector system. Then the other would be certainly fire suppression sprinkler system, right? And that can get very expensive, but and when I was a fire marshal, I remember this statistic, but a business that has a fire, the chance of it recovering and lasting after that recovery for more than 3 years is really stacked against you. And so we know that it's really important, especially in our business community, to do that fire prevention and to make sure that we prevent the fires, because if a business has a fire, it's really, really hard to come back from it. You've got huge cost, even with insurance, because people are going to go, you guys know your business, but your customers are going to go other places. They're going to find other sources. And then just retaining your workforce. There's just a myriad of things that you go through. And then you're out of business for a long time while you rebuild or find another place. And so, like I said, I forget the statistic, but it's overwhelming that if you do get back in business, the likelihood of recovery to full what you were before, it's like 75% of the businesses don't return to full function. So it's important to protect your business, your building, your employees. So smoke detectors and sprinkler systems.
Perfect, great. Another question, how often does the fire department do kind of routine checks with businesses and apartment complexes, just to, make sure that they're prepared for fire hazards? I know I remember, fire marshals kind of walking through the office and being like, oh, that's the wrong extension cord, or, it looks like you need to get your fire extinguisher serviced. Are those kind of routine checks still happening? I know it's difficult, with COVID. And then is there maybe kind of like an added push to do some more of those, routine checks kind of during the winter months, holiday seasons, as people are maybe plugging in more, space heaters and doing that kind of stuff?
So, yeah, let me say pre-COVID, what we did was we have 2 levels of inspection. So we have our permitted occupancies, and that's where you do get an inspector that's specially trained in fire code because you have some type of either system or use that requires a higher level of inspection. So you have flammable liquids, or you have a place of assembly that needs certain exiting requirements, or so there we have what's called our permitted occupancy inspections, which is what the fire inspectors come out and do. And then we have the crew level inspections, and that's where the people on the fire truck are going to come out. You don't have any specialty systems, but they're going to come into your smaller buildings, your ones without fire sprinklers or occupancies or flammable liquids like paint spray booth. You don't have any of that stuff. So they just come out and they do kind of a a more limited inspection, but kind of the same things, electrical, make sure you don't have too many extension cords, make sure that your fire extinguishers. So kind of some basic things that I talked about tonight. They're going to do that. So we did that pre-COVID, every business, every year in Fire District 2. With COVID, to keep our firefighters, and for a long time, we thought we'd have to take our fire inspectors and put them back on the suppression side, because they're on the what we call the admin side. So they're day shift firefighters, that we'd have to bring them back in if we had too many ill firefighters from COVID. And so that was one, that we were trying to protect them, to protect our workforce. And they were also just trying to protect the spread of COVID. And so, like everyone else, businesses were closed down. We were trying to do our part and just keep everyone safe. So we suspended those inspections, and we're just getting now to figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to restart that up. And we are looking at, and maybe between now and the end of the year, sending out, especially for our permitted occupancy, a self-inspection form that just lists, go out and check all of these things. And these are the typical things that we would check and look for. If you have any special questions, give us a call and we'll come out, we'll make a special trip. But we don't want to just come to your place of business and say, hey, we're just another vector of COVID entering your business. So we're looking at a self-inspection program.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think we have time for 2 more questions here, and then last call for questions. If there's anything you have to ask Chief Mars, now's your chance to get it in. Otherwise, I've got 2 questions kind of left in the queue here. The first being, as people are transitioning from traditional kind of Edison lights to LED lights, is that helping? Are we seeing fewer fires this time of year?
I would say yes. And if we're specifically talking about lights on trees, I know the older incandescent lights certainly were hotter, and the LED are much cooler. So I think I've seen maybe one LED string fail and start a small fire, but not nearly as many. So I'd say yeah, probably. I don't have the statistics, but anecdotal. Yeah, the Christmas lights that are LED are much safer.
Great, thank you. And then could you talk a little bit more about how kind of leftover smoking materials, can cause fires? So again, there was, cigarette butt that was maybe left in a planter that then ends up kind of smoldering and then catching fire and growing. What can we do to prevent those things from happening, unintentional kind of, slow burns and smoking materials?
Right. Yeah. You explained it perfectly. Someone, just flicks a button and it sits in, and a lot of them tend to be in like beauty bark areas, and especially, July, August, where that stuff just gets so dry and it's already warmed up and it just sits there and smolders. So the main thing is certainly keep the area next to your building as free from vegetation, especially dry vegetation, as possible. Keep it wet down, those kind of things. Provide discarded smoking material container, a metal butt container to put those in. Probably the 2 biggest things that people can do. But definitely, we've seen and we've had just that dry vegetation, and even more so. I mean, we've had a lot more hot days and dry days and heat related issues. And so we've had a couple of pretty that one heat day that we had that was over 100. We had an apartment fire that day, and that's just same thing, just up next to a building, and I don't remember the cause of it, but it was displaced about 4 or 5 families. And so whatever you can do just to keep the vegetation green or away from the building if it's dead or dying or dormant. So.
Perfect, thank you. Well, again, thank you so much, Chief Mars. Sorry, trying to combine Bowe and Mars. That ends up being bars. Chief Bowe and Chief Mars. Thank you to Aaron. Thank you to Sam, and of course, most importantly, thank you to our members and our businesses that took time to be with us for this quarterly roundtable. Again, we will be back again next quarter. Please do check out our website, SeattleSouthsideChamber.com. All of our committee meetings, all of our district roundtables, all of our chamber events are posted there. We encourage you to attend, engage, and access information. We are in business for your business, and we want to keep you all healthy and safe this holiday season, and of course, always. So on behalf of the chamber staff, board, thank you so much and have a wonderful evening. Take care, everybody, and be safe.